Welcome to memoQ Talks, where we talk to industry leaders about their experiences, lessons learned, and what works best across all areas of localization. Now here's your host.
Hey guys, how are you?
Not bad. How are you doing?
Not bad. Pretty good. I mean, right off the bat, I got to say I'm jealous or envious of your microphone and your whole setup there and your backdrop and your headset. I mean, come on, dude.
I should be the host.
You should be. You look like a professional podcaster, man. Maybe you are. You probably got a side hustle going on. Is that real scenery behind you, or is that a...
That's the real scenery behind me. It's my room, working remotely.
That's very, very nice, man. I like that. Yeah. I've got a white wall, so... Minimalist. It's a minimalist approach. Hey, you've been pretty busy lately. I mean, you just had the ALC Summit in Portland, Oregon. And then what was like a week later, you were down at LocWorld in San Jose. I was at both locations, but it's a little easier for me because I'm on the West Coast. Let me ask you, what are your thoughts in terms of ALC Summit, and then maybe you can contrast with LocWorld and your experiences there?
Yeah, I think both had their merits, and they were really different if you compare the two. My initial expectations were ALC would be a lot larger than it was. But even with its concise gathering, I felt like it was a great place to network. I personally met a lot of people that I've been interacting with online, and I think to have that set up, it's really exciting for people in the industry. And for me, because I wasn't there last year as well, to finally meet people I've been talking to online for so long, it was really good. LocWorld, on the other hand, really large gathering, more tech focused. And now that we are seeing technology at the center of the localization industry, I think LocWorld is really the place to be for me. It was really good. And of course, for us, it was even more exciting with the announcement of memoQ AGT. So yeah, it was really an exciting conference for us.
Yeah, I mean, in fact, our CTO got to participate in the PIC, or the Process and Innovation Challenge. Yeah. We made it into the final round, and so it was very impressive. And you're right, there's a ton of technology there. To back up a little bit, though, it's funny because I've done a fair amount of sales training, and one of my key principles that I can just continually state it over and over again is get the meeting. You have to meet somebody face to face, and until you have that face to face meeting, you're working at a disadvantage. But once you can get that meeting and you can start to develop that relationship, and then we went into this whole COVID thing, and that whole chapter out of my sales training book just got thrown in the dumpster. But when you go to ALC, and as you mentioned, you get to meet these people that, you've been doing business with, sort of, or maybe you've had conversations with, but never met face-to-face. And that face-to-face meeting kind of accelerates the relationship building, makes it much more cohesive. So I'm with you on that. What else? I mean, how many events do you go to a year?
It really varies. We try to distribute it amongst our teams. I've personally taken up events more in this quarter, more than previous quarters. I have a colleague going on most of the events, Alessio. So he's been covering for most of our events, but it's a long list, really. I've lost count, honestly. Yeah. Someone always at some conference throughout the team and throughout the company in general, which is great. I think we have this regional hubs that we have at memoQ where everybody is able to get to their local events. And I think that's really been helpful because it gives memoQ a chance to interact with its customers through all the regions that we are in. And I think for me, since I'm working in the Americas region, I'm mostly in the US or Canada. We have our colleagues in South America as well, so they take care of that region. But whenever it's Canada or US, it has to be me or one of my colleagues here in Canada.
Yeah. Well, and I think this might be a good time for me to say congratulations on your new role with this North America, South America, or we say NASA hub, which is basically our business in North America and South America. And you are now the business leader for the regions.
Yeah, thank you.
So congratulations.
Thank you very much. Yeah.
And I want to talk about the opportunities and the future plans for the regions that you're leading. But I want to back up a little bit because you just talked about all the different events. I think I spoke to Shanyi or Sander Pap, who's our marketing manager, and I think the number he said was that we participate in something like 67 events per year, which is amazing. Are probably the event that is our flagship event that we promote is memoQ Fest, which is, a couple hundred of our customers from around the world get to fly in for that. And that's a lot of fun, but it's also quite educational. But then this last couple of years, we started doing memoQ days, and you and I and Alessio collaborated on one in Seattle, which I really enjoyed. What are your thoughts on the venue differences and the format differences, like these larger scale events versus like a memoQ day?
So I think memoQ Day is really because we do it in different regions again, and this year we have had a really high number of memoQ Days across the region. So for us, when we chose Seattle, we invited our customers there. We invited some people who were interested in memoQ, and when they all sit together in one room, they have the discussions. It really opens out a whole new world, and I think that's something that's the feedback I got from people who came to memoQ Day Seattle. They said that we want to have this more often and in regions that you have never been before. So we want to have it in our area. We want to have it. We want to invite other people who we know who like memoQ, and we want to have them there. I think the feedback was exceptional, and I think that's what differentiates memoQ Day from more of the larger events where you have thousands of people coming, like ATA next week. So memoQ Day is more concentrated. It's more regional. We can have different themes around where we are having memoQ Day, the timing of the year, what's happening with memoQ. So we kind of have a different theme through every memoQ Day. So I think that's what is appreciated by anyone who comes to these events.
Totally agree. And one of the things that I saw at the event that we did here in Seattle was that there were participants who said, our company doesn't have the budget to send us to memoQ Fest in Budapest, for example, but we want to learn from other memoQ users and customers, like some best practices. And I remember Andrew Vestal from Amazon Game Studio presented these amazing, adaptations for memoQ and how they're using it in various aspects with the AWS cloud tools. We had Josh, who's the CEO for Dynamic Language, presenting, certain use cases. And so it's whatever tool you use, it's nice to be in part of a community where people are sharing information in terms of hacks or best practices. I don't want to use the word hack because but you know what I'm saying. I mean, basically workarounds or automations. And that's kind of a cool thing about these local regional events too.
Yeah, I agree. And the names that you just mentioned, a lot of people who came to memoQ Day Seattle, they've been talking to each other and they're having business conversations now, because they realize, okay, you do something with memoQ, we do something with memoQ. If we combine our efforts, we are helping each other. So that's the kind of conversation that have come out of it. I was surprised a couple of weeks ago. I spoke to one of the customers that came to that event, and they mentioned, oh yeah, we're having a conversation with this presenter over there, and we're trying to just work with them now. So that's what happens in memoQ Days. You find out something that was missing in your workflows, and you find something new and exciting, and because it's so concentrated, everybody who's coming there, and it really opens up a whole new world.
Excellent. Well, so again, back to your new role. Why would you want to take on that role? It's a lot of responsibility, man. And because you're responsible for developing our business and growing it, but you're also responsible for maintaining those customer relationships. And there's a lot of things going on behind the scenes there. What was your interest in moving into that role?
I think this is really an excellent time to lead memoQ in Americas. And I think the way the industry is going, and considering my background as well, so we are seeing for the first time in my experience, localization being at the center of technology and innovation. So that's something we haven't seen before at such scale. And memoQ, again, our strategy, our vision really aligns with that. And I don't know if you bought my background, I'm really a firm believer in open innovation. So do you know the difference between open innovation and the internal innovations that generally happens in companies? So
explain.
Right. So every company has an innovation unit, okay, whether it's just developers, programmers. So if it's an internal innovation, what happens is you keep your products and your innovation really internal. So regardless of your experience, you're a developer, you're a programmer, you'll create something new for the customers and you introduce it to the market, and that's about it. Open innovation involving the external parties or the end users in your innovation process. And they will really guide you as to how you should innovate a product. It's really common in the aviation industry where let's talk about Boeing, for example. When 777 was developed, it had a chief pilot. The chief pilot is someone who's retired from the services, but is helping Boeing innovate areas in the cockpit that they're used to. So that's the idea of innovation. If they don't involve the end users, it can be catastrophic for some users. So with memoQ, the great thing is our internal innovation by default is open innovation because our founders were translators, they were linguists, our developers are linguists. So whenever we are innovating something, we are by default, including that open innovation idea in our processes. The same happened with memoQ AGT. And for me, because I love that idea, it's very easy for me to kind of promote it. And I can relate to our customers who, when they say, okay, you're introducing something new with memoQ, why do you think it'll help us? Well, because the translators have developed the idea of memoQ, because the linguists are involved in the development of memoQ, I can really engage with the customers in our region more in that sense. And what I've noticed in the American region, especially in the enterprise side, anyone who wants to implement any new software, any new kind of thing in their workflow, they don't just want to buy the tool and just start using it. They really want to know how we would help them integrate it in their system and how we will evolve with them. So that involves sort of a consultative role. And what memoQ has in the team here, we have people with 3 decades of experience in the industry, worked as linguists, worked as project managers, worked as developers, worked as every role that you could think of in memoQ or outside in the industry. And when they talk to such people inside memoQ who are their account managers, suddenly their account manager is someone who has a 35-year experience in the industry. And what they realize is, okay, we are not just buying the software, we are buying decades of experience of someone who's done it. And we are trying to do that with memoQ now. So they don't just buy the software, they buy the whole experience. And I think for me, it's really easy to market. For me, it's really easy to connect with the customers. And I think for me, yes, it is a huge responsibility because we are really serious about our region, our market in the Americas. And I think our customers have grown to trust and rely on memoQ a lot. I don't want to expand it even further, but there are customers who have told me personally when I went on a client meeting in Boston, they said that you have no idea the kind of data we put through memoQ, and even a small error could have catastrophic effects because what we do is we use software strings in memoQ to translate software strings, and that software goes into surgical devices, that software goes into space research, and the reason they chose memoQ is because of the reliability that we have to offer. So, having these conversations with customers, it was really exciting for me to put that out. And in the coming months, hopefully, we'll have more conversations with customers and,
I mean, just listening to you talk gets me kind of excited. My skin's getting all getting excited about it because it, and it's not just sales and marketing talk here. It's real. I've seen it. And to back up and kind of touch on a couple of your points, when you're investing at the enterprise level in any kind of platform, you don't want to just send the money and get the platform, say like, okay, you're on your own. You need that support. The support can come from both the company or the provider, but also that community or that ecosystem. And that ecosystem, we just talked about, it can be, something that is facilitated by the memoQ Days or memoQ Fests. So I think that's hugely an important part of the equation. And as we grow in terms of our community of users, it almost starts to take on a kind of growth of its own and starts to accelerate because there are more users, more information, more sharing. So that's all really important. Back to that internal versus external innovation. I've worked for companies that have done both. I've worked for companies where you have like 4 smart people who go into a room and say, hey, this is what we're going to do for the future of our company. And so many times, it's like, because you could be the 4 smartest people in the world, but there's how many billion people on the planet right now? 5 billion, 6 billion people. I mean, there's trust me, you should be able to leverage some of these communities. And so what you kind of described to me, it mirrors my experience with agile development. Agile development is all about getting something out, getting a feature out, releasing it, and getting feedback from the community of users. If you do the waterfall thing where you go into a dark room and 2 years later you come out and say, here's our product, it's not going to work 99% of the time. Well, there are some very specific cases where it does work. Like if you're going to build a space shuttle and send it up, right? I mean, there are things like that where the waterfall, but everybody's, when it comes to software these days, is all on agile and getting that feedback. The other thing that you kind of talked about, which to me mirrors open source communities communicate, collaborate, and find better ways to kind of develop the platform, but also use the platform. And I can think at like memoQ Fest, where both users share information and ideas. And I've seen some of our largest customers, especially in the gaming sector, who have stood up and answered questions on behalf of memoQ because they had deeper knowledge in that specific area. And I'm like, that is awesome, right? The other thing is, in terms of the feedback cycle at memoQ Fest, for example, I think the last session is called the User Strike Back, where our leadership gets up on stage and says, come on, tell us what's wrong. Tell us what we're getting wrong here. Tell us what we need to do. And one more thing, you got me on a rant here. I don't know if you've ever participated in our Dash Team's consultant roundtable, and that's all about bringing consultants and users and leadership from customers together in a roundtable scenario, and taking 3 or 4 different topics over like a half day every quarter and saying, what's memoQ's roadmap? Here's what we're thinking. What do you guys think? What's working? And it's that constant communication that's really, really important. So yeah, you got me excited, man.
No, I was at the roundtable only this week, and I'm glad you brought it up. And I saw that. I saw how people are excited about the small things that we are introducing in memoQ, and how they are willing to test it and give us feedback. And that's really the core of it. We have customers here in Canada. They came to me and they said, we should have like a forum. We should have like a task force where because I always say you can keep your memoQ setup as simple as you want it to be, or you can make it as complex as you want it to be. So when these customers interact with other memoQ customers and they see, they've done something great with their memoQ setup, could you give us some ideas that maybe we can replicate in our setup? And that's how the idea came up. Maybe we should have like a forum or a task force where all memoQ users come together and really talk about it. And kind of, the memoQ days, essentially at the core, that was the idea, to have these people in one room and just talk about their memoQ experiences.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, let me ask you, you're in the driver's seat or in the captain's chair for our, North America, South America business right now. What are the opportunities that you see for memoQ in the region?
So what I see memoQ is really I would say in a place where I consider memoQ like a subset of innovation, user experience. So when you look at these two things, innovation, user experience, and reliability. So memoQ likes to innovate, and customers want us to innovate. But they don't want that at the cost of reliability, at the cost of user experience. Or what I've seen from customers in our region is memoQ has this reputation now where when they really want to go big, they want to really scale up, they always fall back to memoQ. And I think that's where the opportunity lies for us. We are continuously innovating while providing that reliability, while providing that user experience that everybody loves. I think that there is a really large market out there for that. It's not always about being, having all the buzzwords in your marketing campaign. It's not all about that. It's about, at the core of it, is just being reliable and being, I met this person at ALC, and he mentioned that when I use memoQ in our team, I always say memoQ is like that Toyota truck. It's so reliable. When you have to go to the desert, just take the Toyota truck. memoQ is like that. When you have large data, when you have complex workflows, when you have really something very important to do, I will always fall back to memoQ. And the language agencies, language service providers, they use multiple tools, but they know that when we have something really serious to do, we fall back to memoQ. And I think that's really going to be exciting for me to introduce this concept in the market. And I think that's where I'm headed.
What do you think your biggest challenge is going to be?
I think for me right now is really creating that team structure where I am, approaching that market and putting that message out there that, at LocWorld, I've met people and they said, you know what, you talk about AGT, LiveDocs is really revolutionary. I'm surprised people aren't talking about it. And then someone else will come in, hey, memoQ has this feature. It is so great. How come you're not talking about it?
It's so funny. I had somebody come up to me and just like, why aren't you guys promoting live docs more?
So
at LocWorld, it's probably it might have been the same guy.
Yeah. So when I hear that, I said, okay, what we need to do is really tell the market that memoQ is here, and we have this American division that is dedicated to this market, and we have a full team here. And back when memoQ Americas was announced, it was in 2018. It was before I joined the company. And when I joined memoQ, that was really that's what excited me, that memoQ is going to this market and it hasn't been here before, and now it's a full American division. I want to be part of it. So that's where it all started. And now that I'm here in the driver's seat, and I think all the ideas and the vision that I had for this region, maybe I can bring that to fruition.
I'm sure you can. How many different languages does your team speak?
Oh, I would have to count. So it's amazing. So we have
I know we have English, Spanish, French, Italian. How many languages? And you probably speak some non-English languages as well.
I speak Kashmiri, Urdu, Hindi, and English. So
okay.
So we have I think that's I don't know if Portuguese.
That's just for our that's just for this regional team. And of course, outside the region, we have Japanese, Mandarin, Korean, and then a host of European languages. So I think we got most of the bases covered there.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, we have everything is covered in our region for sure, and a lot of places globally as well.
You are not originally from the Loc industry, and you must have got the feel, especially going to these events, that there's a lot of old timers or lifers, and a lot of people at these events. They actually, there were even students at the events, several of them from the Middlebury Institute of International Studies, that they haven't even graduated yet, but they're on this localization career path, right? I kind of fell into the Loc industry. I pursued an opportunity in the Loc industry very, very seriously and intensely in 2008. Prior to that, I wasn't really aware of the industry. But when I came into the industry, I realized that, wow, most of these people have been here forever, or at least, for the major part of their career. You are similar. You came from outside. What are your observations in terms of, one, how long did it take you to get your sea legs and up and running in the industry and understand? And two, are there any major differences between other industries you've worked in and the localization industry?
Yeah, when I joined, it was right before the pandemic, and right before I was supposed to go on our first conference, which I believe was Gala in San Diego, it got canceled. So I never got a chance to meet anyone for the first year and a half almost until memoQ Fest. So for me, my experience was only interacting with the enterprise customers. So my initial role was heading the enterprise sales in the Americas. And because I wasn't from the industry, I think I was able to bring the outside perspective, which was helpful for me in selling to the customers who are not from the localization industry. So if I'm talking to a tech company, I come from a tech background, and memoQ at its core is a tech product. Right. So what helped me understand is, okay, I have this tech product and I have this localization industry that I have to merge. And for me, because I was able to bring that outside perspective, I was able to relate to those tech customers a bit more. And I think for me, that was really the key for that accelerated growth that we had in the enterprise market in the Americas. And over time, as I interacted with people in the industry, what I realized that the main difference here is cross collaboration. Throughout the industry, there's in other industries I've seen that cutthroat competition, which to a certain extent is a bit toned down in the localization world. It's not really like that. It's a more collaborative environment. It's a more learning and nurturing environment, and I think that's why people love this industry at the core of it, and that's really the main difference that I noticed when I joined.
Yeah, I would agree with you in terms of the frenemy kind of situations where, you might be competitors, but you're still on friendly basis with them. There's a lot of information sharing. And what I love is, you get people from all around the world and, your different languages and food and culture. And people, if you're going to be in an industry like this, you kind of have to be open to, to going outside your comfort zone and meeting people and traveling and all that. So it's awesome. I came into the industry on the service provider side. So it's a little different because you came into the technology. what I found on the service provider side was that you have to know the localization part, but you have to understand your customer's business. So I was at CLS Communication, and we were focused primarily on financial services. You can't just go in and say, hey, we sell them translation. You'd have to go in and say, okay, let's talk about equity research, or let's talk about investment banking, which they call IB, or you'd have private banking, for example, wealth management, all these different things. And so for me, it was kind of cool because I was learning the translation or localization industry, but I also had to learn these other industries, so it's a fun space to be in.
Yeah. How did you feel like when you joined the industry, like full on? How did you feel the difference?
I felt that so the company I was with was CLS Communication, Swiss. They were very serious about growing the business, but I felt the business was, what's the right word, maybe just more humane than like a typical American West Coast tech business. Okay, it's all about, hey, let's take care of the people, and let's take care of our customers, and if mistakes were made, well, let's turn those into learning opportunities, and so on. So I've just really enjoyed my stay in the Loc industry.
Wonderful.
Yeah. So what plans do you have? I mean, for the rest of 2023, any more events, and also, anything exciting for 2024?
For the rest of the year, we have ATA next week in Miami, and we have memoQ Day Montreal coming up in early November. Some of our team members will be going to OTIAC in Montreal as well. We are thinking of having a few more memoQ days, but still under contention. We'll see if we can manage that. 2024 is going to be I would say my first real take on the industry and in the region, and I'll probably have some new things to announce. And yeah, if you're following me around, you'll know.
Okay. So let me just back up. What advice would you give to somebody who wanted to come into the Loc industry?
I think the first thing I would say is, what are you looking for from what you're doing now? What change are you looking for? Because a lot of time when you move around from one industry to the other, either you're dissatisfied from the working culture of a particular industry, or you're looking for something new. Right now, what I feel like is the way the direction that localization industry is taking, being more tech focused, and the announcement we are seeing around AI, most of it is coming on the localization side. So we met a lot of people in transcribing business at LocWorld. Mm-hmm. I've seen Adobe making an announcement on dub. So all of this is like, I'm saying that if you are into that, if you're really thinking about innovation in that sector, communication, localization, then that's really when you would have to consider moving to this industry, because that's where all of it happens. And when I joined the localization industry, I didn't know the scale of it. I thought it's really a small group of translators. It's not really an industry on its own. I mean, I didn't know there was a market research around the industry. I didn't know it was a full-fledged industry. Like, I thought it's just a group of translators every company has. But once you dig deep and you go deeper into it, it's a whole new world. And I would actually encourage people right now to look into it, because right now is the best time to be here. I find it really exciting looking at all these companies innovating and using and leveraging the AI and LLMs and introducing exciting tools that, everything I see in LocWorld, I say, oh, I want that. It's so exciting. So I think if you're I've seen localization companies taking part in tech events like Collision in Toronto. So this is more intersecting now. The old tech sector that we had in Silicon Valley and the localization industry was a bit tamed down. Now we are looking at the both collaborating more closely. And I think if that's what excites you, come to localization.
It's interesting because you are super excited by this, the development and deployment of AI and large language model type solutions. And how you're excited about how it's going to revolutionize the industry, and you talk about the opportunities. There is another train of thought that says that these models and these tools are going to put first translators and then project managers and everybody else out of work. And the truth is probably somewhere in the middle. I don't know. But, if somebody came to you and said, hey, this is no good, we have to stop it because it's going to put people out of work. What are your thoughts on that?
I think there's a bit of a misunderstanding when it comes to how we are implementing AI and LLMs in the industry. I think all it will do is make translators more efficient. It'll help us save a lot of time and money. And if you feel like AI is taking the job away from a translator, you're not understanding the whole concept very well. I think it's just going to make translators more efficient. And we've always said that any new AI innovation that we've seen in the industry, it's not really taking away something, but it's introducing something that will help you in what you're doing already.
Yeah. And, I agree with you. And at the same time, I would also say that I can't recall a time in my lifetime where we have released or developed a new technology and then just said, no, we're not going to do that anymore. I mean, I guess the closest example would be, nuclear energy and nuclear weapons, but we still have them. We have thousands of them, right? So there's nobody said, hey, we can put that genie back in the bottle. The knowledge is there. But especially when you're talking about at the enterprise level or at the consumer level, we just have not been able to walk back. And once the technology's out there, probably the best course of action is to figure out, okay, how can I use this to make me more efficient? Or how do I have to, maybe I have to reinvent myself, and I have to learn a new skill. If I'm a project manager, maybe I have to learn about, prompt engineering or using prompts to make myself more productive. So I would advise everybody to embrace it and just, realize that, we're not going back to fax machines. We're not, we're not even gonna go back to email at some point, this is a continual march forward, at least for the time being. Well, guys, I got to say, it's great having you lead the team. I enjoy working alongside you. I'm an honorary member of the North America, South America hub. I think the potential, like you said, is huge. And, it's got to put you on the spot here. Are we going to do a memoQ Day Seattle, Vancouver next year? I
would really hope so.
I like that answer. Okay. You heard it here. Hey, well, so thanks. I know you're super busy. In fact, you were actually late for this call because you were on talking with customers and you've got a lot of stuff going on. But thank you for taking some time and being on memoQ Talks.
Thank you, Mark. Pleasure talking to you.
Thank you for joining memoQ Talks, where we talked with industry leaders about their experiences and lessons learned to gain new insights about what works best across all areas of localization. Join us next time on memoQ Talks.